Good morning, students. Today we start our lecture with a new chapter, which is Foundation of Problematic Soils and Introduction to Geosynthetics. Right. So we first starting with the our first topic, which is Foundation on a Problematic Soil. Okay. So so first of all, starting with some general characteristics of the expansive soil. Right. So what is the expansive soil and so expansive soils, which are clay soils, and that types of soils are also known as a swelling soils, right? So these soils swells considerably when the water is added to them and shrinks greatly on drying, developing cracks on the surface. So when the expansive soil swells, cohesion decreases. The variation in the volume of the soil is to extent of 20 to 30% of the original volume. Right? But a soil whose swelling is prevented by a small surface low or by more supply of water, more supply of water, so it's not considered as a swelling soil, right? So, for example of sand, expansive soil possesses a high plasticity index. Their liquid limit is more than 40 and plasticity index is more than 15. So black cotton soil is found in many parts of India, belongs to the category. So their colors varies from dark gray to the black. So it is easy to recognize these soils in the field. So shrinkage cracks are visible on the ground, right? Visible on the ground during the dry season. So the width of cracks may be up to 20 mm or more. So a lump of dry black cotton soils requires hammers to break, right? So there are this figure given which is a active zone, right? So there are ground surface here, uh, depth and Z is equal to effective zone depth, and below that zone it's a stable zone, right? Here, this two curves shows the dry season moisture content, right? And at the end of this curve, it indicates wet season moisture content, right? And at the last and exact below that, there is a equilibrium moisture content given, right? So this is our active zone. So during the rainy season, this soils becomes very sticky and very difficult to traverse. So these soils have very poor bearing capacity ranging from 50 kilonewton per meter square to 100 kilonewton per meter square. The foundation constructed on such soils are subjected to large uplift forces, which is caused by swelling. So these forces includes having cracking and breakup of foundation. Depth in a soil to which periodic changes of moisture content occurs is referable to as active zone or unable zone. So in dry season, the water content increases with the depth and become constant at certain depth. And in the wet season, water content is maximum at the surface and decreases with the depth up to the depth of active zone. So the structure built within the active zones are likely to move up during the rainy season and down during the dry season. So this structure suffer a damage if differential movements are considerable. So if a structure is built during dry seasons with the foundation lying within the active zone, the base of the foundation experiences swelling pressure during the wet season, and the maximum swelling pressure may be as high as 2 megapascal. If the imposed bearing pressure on the foundation by the structure is less than the swelling pressure, then the structure is likely to be lifted up locally, which would lead to crack in the structure. So if the imposed bearing pressure is greater than the swelling pressure, so there will be no any problem to the structure. Right? And if the structure is built during the wet season, it will definitely experience settlement during the dry season. So the better practice is to construct structure during dry season and complete it before the wet season. Next is mechanism of swelling. So swelling behavior of a soil would mainly depends on largely on the type of clay materials uh, that are present in this soil and the proportion in which they are present. So the clay minerals on the basis of their crystalline arrangement can be divided into the three main groups. First is kaolin group, second is montmorillonite group, and third one is elite group. Right. So kaolin group of materials are the most stable of the group of minerals. Right. The kaolinite material is formed by staking of alumina sheet over the silica sheet, and the bond between two sheets is strong, and the mineral is stable. So water cannot easily enter between the structure unit and cause the expansion. So the clay mineral containing kaolinite exhibit less swelling on wetting. So structural arrangement of this Montmorillonite mineral consists of an alumina sheet sandwiched between the two silica sheets, forming a structural unit. So successive structural units are staked one over the another and joined together by a link between oxygen atoms and two silica sheets. So as the bonding between two silica sheets is weak and water can enter and cause a swelling, thus the soil containing a large amount of mineral exhibits a high shrinkage and swelling characteristics. So bentonite clay and black cotton soil contain Montmorillonite mineral, right? So the elite mineral has the same structural arrangement as this previous group, right? But the presence of potassium as a bonding material between two structural units makes the elite minerals swell less. So swelling potential is basically defined as percentage of swell of a laterally confined sample in an oedometer test, which is soaked in water under a surcharge load of 7 kilopascal after being compacted to maximum dry density at optimum moisture content according to ASTO compaction test. So swelling pressure known as a PS is defined as the pressure required for preventing volume expansion in soil in contact with the water. So this process measured in a laboratory oedometer is different from that in the field. So the actual field swelling pressure is always less than the one measured in the laboratory. So what are the identification of expansive soil? So this type of clay materials and its proportion in the soil can be determined in the laboratory by following techniques. First one is the differential thermal analysis, also known as DTA, X-ray diffraction method, and third one is the electron microscopy. So the DTA method is based on the fact that certain characteristics reaction take place at a specific temperature for a different mineral. So when these minerals are heated to high temperatures, resulting in a loss of or a gain in heat, the specimen of soil with the unknown mineral is heated continuously along with the inert substance in the electric oven, and record of change in temperature of the mineral, which is plotted against over the temperature, is obtained. So by comparing this available records of several known clay minerals and the type of clay mineral present and its amount can be known. So different minerals with the different regular patterns of crystalline structures will affect the X-ray to yield different X-ray diffraction patterns. So with the X-ray diffraction patterns of common clay materials being known, it is possible to know which type of minerals are present and in what proportion. So in electron microscopy, the soil is observed under polarized light in an electron microscope. So this method requires skill and experience. Certain characteristics, stains, etc. are indications of nature of clay minerals present. So the test discussed about the rather the specialized and technical. From the engineering point of view, it will be sufficient to get an indication of possible swelling behavior by performing some simple tests. These tests are free swell test, differential free swell test, and swelling pressure test. So first one is a free swell test. So Halls and Gibbs in 1956 suggested free swell test, 10 centimeter cube of dry soil passing through 425 micron sieve is poured into the 100 centimeter cube graduated cylinder filled with water. So the volume of this settled soil is measured after 24 hours. So the free swell present percent is determined as SF is equal to VF minus VI divided by VI multiplied by 100. Right? So here VA is equal to initial dry volume of poured soil. VF is equal to final volume of settled soil. So bentonite, a highly swelling soil which contains this montomorinolite may have a free swell value ranging from 1200 to 2000%, right? Kaolinite about 80% and illite from 30 to 80%. So free swell value increase with the plasticity index. Soil having a free swell value as low as 100% can cause considerable damage to the lightly loaded structures, and soils having a free swell value below the 50% seldom exhibit appreciable volume change even under the light loading. Second is a differential free swell test. So two samples of dry soil weighing 10 gram each passing through 425 micron sieve are taken. One is put in 50 cc graduated glass cylinder containing kerosene oil. The other sample is put in similar cylinder containing distilled water. So both the samples are left undisturbed for 24 hours, and then their volumes are noted. So differential free swell is expressed as DFS is equal to soil volume in water minus soil volume in kerosene divided by soil volume in kerosene multiplied by 100. So the degree of expansiveness and the possible damage to lightly loaded structures may be taken from this below table, which is degree of expansiveness and differential free swell. Depends on degree of expansiveness, DFS percentage is changed. So for low degree, its DFS is less than 20%. For moderate, it's 20 to 30%. For high, it's 35 to 50%. And in very high degree, DFS is greater than 50%. So in area where the soil have a high or very high DFS, so the conventional shallow foundation will not be adequate. So the relation between swelling potential and the swelling potential of the soils and the plasticity index are for very low swelling potential, plasticity index is between 0 to 15%. For medium, it's between 10 to 35%. For high, it's a 20 to 35%, and it's very high, it's a 35 and more percentage, right? Third one is a swelling pressure test. So swelling pressure can be defined as the maximum force per unit area required to be placed over the swelling soil to prevent the volume increase. So the swelling pressure is a very useful index of the trouble potential of an expansive soil. So the swelling pressure of less than about 20 kilonewton per meter square may not be regarded as of much consequence, right? So this swelling pressure can be determined from the two different types of test. First one is a conventional consolidation test. Second one is a constant volume test. So first is a conventional consolidation test. In this type of test, the specimen is placed in oedometer under a small surcharge of about 7 kilonewton per meter square. So water is added to specimen, allow it to swell and reach an equilibrium positions after some time. So the pressure on the specimen is gradually increased and the specimen is allowed to consolidate. So the plot of specimen deformation versus the pressure is drawn. The delta versus sigma dash plot, which crosses the horizontal line through the point of initial condition. So the pressure corresponding to the point of interaction is become zero to swell pressure sigma dash SW, as you can see in this figure, right? Which is zero swell pressure from conventional consolidation test. Second is constant volume test. So the constant volume test can be conducted by taking a specimen in consolidation ring and applying the pressure equal to the effective overburden pressure, which is sigma dash zero. plus the approximate anticipated surcharge caused by foundation is sigma dash h. So water is then added to the specimen, and as the specimen starts to swell, pressure is applied in a small increment to prevent the swelling. So pressure is maintained until full swelling pressure is developed on the specimen, at which time the total pressure is sigma dash HW is equal to sigma dash 0 plus sigma dash H plus sigma dash L. So sigma dash SW is total pressure applied to prevent the swelling or zero swell pressure. Sigma 0 dash is equal to effective overburden pressure. Sigma dash S is equal to surcharge caused by the foundation. And sigma L dash is equal to additional pressure which is applied to prevent swelling after addition of water. So this figure shows the variation of percentage swell with the effective pressure during a swelling pressure test. So there are some consequences or effects because of swelling. Right? So huge moisture content variation from season to season leads to rise and fall the ground surface. If the imposed bearing pressure on the foundation by the structure is less than the swelling pressure, the structure is likely to be lifted up locally, which would lead to crack in the structure. If the structure is built during the wet season, it will definitely experience settlement during the dry season. Floor slab is lifted up typically in an irregular dome-shaped pattern or corner down pattern, leading to cracking of the floor. The footing walls are pushed outwards, leading to cracking of end of walls in the structure. Cracking is also evident at the corners of the windows and door opening. So this usually assumes the form of diagonal cracks due to differential settlements of wall. Utilities buried in expansive soil such as waste pipes, sewage pipes, and get damaged due to displacement in the soil. So next is, what are the treatment of expansive soil? So the swelling of a soil has two injurious effects on a structure founded on it. So one is the reduction in the strength of the soil, and second is the movement of the structure. So following measures may be taken to reduce the swelling of potential of the soil and increase its strength. Right. So first one is the replacement of expansive soil. So simple and easy solution for slabs and footing on expansive soil is to replace the foundation soil with non-swelling soils. So experience indicates that there is no danger of foundation movement if the subsoil consists of 1.5 meter of non-swelling soil underlain by highly expansive soil. Second one is compaction control. So expansive soils expand very little when compacted at low densities and higher moisture content. The moisture content of soil should be about 3 to 4% of about OMC. So the purpose of pre-wetting is to ensure the moisture content of the soil near the surface before the placement of the structure. One technique of pre-wetting is ponding and to achieve most of the heave before the construction. So this method is suitable for highway subgrades. Fourth one is the moisture barriers. Moisture control methods are applied around the perimeter of the structure, and these barriers may be vertical or horizontal, but the vertical barriers are more effective. This vertical trench about 15 centimeter wide and 1.5 meter deep and filled with gravel, lean concrete or lime fly ash have been found quite effective moisture barriers. So the effective barrier should be supplemented with adequate drainage system. Fifth one is the soil stabilization. Soil stabilization using the lime and cement has proven useful. An addition of about 5 to 7% of lime reduces the swelling and shrinkage characteristics of expansive soil. So swelling of a soil can be reduced by adding salt with a compacted soil, and it also increase the iron concentration in the pore water. So treatment of road subgrades with a salt solution improve its stability. And the addition of calcium hydroxide CaOH2 2 to 6% to expansive soils results in a reduction in the swelling potential of the expansive soil. Now concept of C and S layers. So CNS means cohesive non-swelling soil. The use of CNS layer is replacing expansive black cotton soil have been tried in India for canal lining, building and the foundation of cross-drainage structures. So the expansive soil is replaced by clay soil having cohesion but no clay minerals of the expansive soil. So for the building foundation, thick of the CNC layer below the footing level is kept 1 meter and extending 1 meter beyond the edge of the footing. Right. So tentative specification for CNC materials are grain size analysis for clay. It's a 15 to 25, silt 30 to 45, sand is 30 to 40, and gravel is 10%. Consistency limit for liquid limit 30 to 50, for plastic limit 20 to 25, for shrinkage limit is greater than 50%, and for plasticity index is between 10 to 25%. Next is the swelling pressure. I don't know what they are trying to say. But next is the thickness of CNS layer. So for swelling pressure is 1.15 kg per centimeter square. It's a 0.75 to 0.85 meter. So for 2 to 3 kg per centimeter square swelling pressure, it's a 0.9 to 1 meter. For 3.5 to 5 kg per centimeter square, it's between 1.05 to 1.15 meter. And at the last, clay minerals, Keoline's elite is preferably. So foundation on expansive soil. So it is necessary to note that all the parts of the building will not equally be affected by the swelling potential of the soil. So beneath the center of the building where the soil is protected from the sun and rain, the moisture changes are small and the soil movements are least. Right. So the damage to the building is the greater on the outside of the wall. So three general types of foundation can be considered in expansive soils are structures that can be kept isolated from the swelling effects of the soil, designing foundation that will remain undamaged in spite of swelling of soil, elimination of swelling potential of soil. So there are some types of foundation which are provided in expansive soil, which is shallow foundation isolated from swelling soil, waffle slab, drill shaft foundation, drill pier with a grade beam and under beam pile.